Chapter 2874. It turned out that as long as they had a strong will and were not disturbed by external factors, they could break through their limits. However, they had let go of such an opportunity. Leng Hua was originally a cultivator who had just entered the nascent soul stage. Compared to them who were at the peak of the nascent soul stage, he was still weak. However, once he advanced, he would break through to the fairy realm. His strength would be above them. When they thought of this, they could not help but have the urge to try again. This was not because they were jealous of his strength, but because they hoped that they could rely on themselves to advance and enter the fairy realm. In the future, when they went to another world, they could be of help to their master. With a thought, they looked at Xianyuan Mose, who was sitting at the side, and asked, "Yama Lord, can we go up and try again?" When he heard this, Xianyuan Mose turned to look at them. "It's not suitable. If you go up again, you won't advance like Leng Hua. Instead, you will be suppressed by the pressure." But Luo Yu wanted to say something more, but he was interrupted by Du Fan. "We understand." As Du Fan spoke, he pressed on Luo Yu's shoulder and said, "It's not suitable. The first 100 steps train one state of mind. We missed the opportunity, and we can't go up again in a short period of time. Moreover, if we blindly try to be like Leng Hua, I'm afraid we will be injured. When that happens, we will definitely become a burden to our master." When he heard this, Luo Yu stopped thinking and did not say anything else. They were not Leng Hua. What Leng Hua could do, they might not be able to do. Even if Leng Hua did not look very outstanding, they had to admit that he was more outstanding than them. At this moment, the second bolt of lightning fell from the sky. Fengjiu retreated to the side and watched. She watched as Leng Hua endured the tempering of the second bolt of lightning and worked hard to enter the fairy realm. She smiled from the bottom of her heart. He was worthy of being the person she had chosen. His temperament was indeed extraordinary. One had to know that Leng Hua's cultivation was slower than others. He couldn't even cultivate in the past. But now his progress was faster than others. She watched as he sat there cross-legged, controlling his spiritual power to circulate in his dantian, waiting for the third bolt of heavenly thunder to strike. Thus, she walked down to where Leng Shuang and the others were. They didn't know how long it would take for Leng Hua to advance. They wanted to see how far Leng Hua and the others could go. Therefore, she walked to their side and observed them unhurriedly from behind to see where their limits were. At the bottom of the Immortal Ascension stairs, the cultivators were dumbfounded. The pressure on the Immortal Ascension stairs is so strong. How can that woman in red walk up and down so freely? Some of the cultivators who had seen Fengjiu before whispered, "You don't know. Last time this woman came here, she seemed to have reached the top. But for some reason she came back down. Don't look down on her, because she's a woman. Her power is unfathomable. I think she's stronger than all the cultivators here." Hearing this, the cultivators were shocked. They couldn't help but whisper among themselves. Their gazes fell on the Immortal Ascension stairs. This time, 2 men and 2 women went up. The 2 women were extremely beautiful, but they didn't seem to be very powerful. How far could they go? Chapter 2875. Only then did they feel the pressure grow heavier. It felt like a mountain was pressing down on them, making it hard for them to breathe. They could not even take a single step forward. Bai Qingqing's face grew paler as she walked. She suddenly drew her sword and slashed at her surroundings. "I'm going to kill all of you. I'm going to kill all of you." She screamed at the top of her lungs. Her eyes were bloodshot as if she had been possessed. Her voice was filled with hatred and grief. At this moment, in front of her, what she saw was an illusion from the stairway of immortality. She saw her entire clan being annihilated. Those black-robed men were killing her clansmen. She saw her parents lying on the ground, covered in blood. She rushed forward, waving her sword and slashing wildly in an attempt to kill those black-robed men. Behind her, Fengjiu saw her waving her sword and screaming wildly. He knew that she had been bewitched. He glanced at the people in front of him. Seeing that they were not affected, he rushed forward knocked her unconscious, and sent her down.
Catch.
She directly sent her down the immortal ascension stairs and gestured for Luo Yu and the others below to catch her. Luo Yu and Du Fan rushed forward to catch her. They quickly carried the unconscious by Qingcheng to Fan Lin. Quick, check on her. How is she? Fan Lin checked her and said with a serious expression, her mind is in a mess. The blood in her body is flowing in the opposite direction. Fortunately, she was sent down by Master. Otherwise, she would have been in grave danger. Hearing this, the two of them were shocked. She was so powerful. If they had not come down, would they have been in the same state as her? On the immortal ascension stairs, Leng Shuang, Hui Lang, and Ying Yi were walking at about the same pace. They had already reached more than 70 steps. Luo Yu and the others below could not help but stare at them. These guys, how are they so much stronger than us? It had to be said that he felt it was unfair when he saw this. As the 8 captains of the Phoenix Guard, there was no need to mention their strength. Yet in the end, they were actually inferior to Leng Shuang and Leng Hua. What's more, even Hui Lang, who is usually quiet, had a stronger temperament than them. This was simply too much of a blow to them. Fan Lin looked at the people on the ladder of immortality and said, Leng Shuang will follow Master. Needless to say, Ying Yi is the head of the Yama Lord Shadow Guards. His temperament is extraordinary. The only surprising one is Hui Lang. He usually doesn't seem very reliable, but I didn't expect him to be so determined. Among the 3 of us, Fan Lin, you specialize in medicine and alchemy, so your weakness is one thing. However, if Luo Yu and I are weak, then it's a little inexcusable. Looks like we'll have to work harder in the future. Du Fan sighed softly. That's right. I must double my cultivation. Otherwise, I'll really be left behind. Luo Yu nodded in agreement. At this moment, the 3 of them simultaneously reached the 98th step. They stopped and felt a surge of spiritual energy in their bodies. Calming themselves down, they turned around and saw Fengju not far behind them. Master, I feel like I'm about to break through. Leng Shuang said. His cold voice contained a hint of excitement. I feel like I'm about to break through too. The energy in my dantian is already surging. Hui Lang said, touching his dantian. Chapter 2876. After taking another 5 steps, he could no longer take another step. Only then did he stop. At this time, the spiritual energy in his body surged. The powerful spiritual energy converged into a stream and rushed towards his dantian. Quickly sit down and guide your spiritual energy. Fengjiu's voice directly entered his mind, causing him to suddenly wake up from his stupor. Almost instinctively, he did as he was told. At the same time, Leng Shuang and Hui Lang also sat down cross-legged and prepared to advance. Seeing this, Fengjiu took a deep breath and slowly exhaled. He retreated to the side and watched them. Hiss. Could it be that those people are also going to advance? What kind of freaks are they? They don't look strong, but they actually reached the 100th step? The cultivators below widened their eyes. They could no longer see the figures of those people beyond the 100th step. However, they did not see them coming down. Furthermore, there was a strange phenomenon in the sky. They knew that those people were definitely about to advance. Looking at the scene above, Shen Yuanmo's glanced in a certain direction and said to Luo Yu and Du Fan, Go and replace Wei Feng and Gu Mo. Hearing this, they finally remembered that they had not seen the 2 of them since a while ago. Hence, Luo Yu asked, Yama Lord, what are the 2 of them doing over there? Jiao asked them to cook some porridge for Hao. Looking at the time, it should be almost done. Go and take a look. If it's done, scoop a bowl of porridge for me, Shen Yuanmo said. Okay. The 2 of them replied and quickly walked towards where they came from. There was a large empty space around them. However, they were not in this empty space. Instead, they were under a tree not far away. When they arrived, Luo Yu and Du Fan saw the 2 of them looking at the immortal ascension stairs under the tree. When they saw them coming over, they smiled. You're here? Little master, are you hungry? The porridge is almost done. As Wei Feng spoke, he turned around and added some firewood. Wei Feng Guemo, you've seen it too, right? Luo Yu looked at the two of them as he spoke. His eyes burned with excitement. I saw it. Yu, Fanlin, and Du Fan came down after about 70 steps, the two said mockingly, looking at the two people in front of them. We regret it so much now. If we had known earlier, we would have clenched our teeth and climbed those 100 steps. Look at them, they are all stronger than us. We want to go up and try again, but the Yama Lord said that it would be useless for us to go up again. At this point, Luo Yu sighed and said, by the way, the Yama Lord wants you to go over. He probably wants you to go up and try. You have to listen to us. Although the master should act according to his ability, when you go up, it's best not to think that you have reached your limit. Otherwise, you will end up like us. When they heard this, the two of them smiled. We know. Also, you have to go up the Immortal Ascension stairs like this. They repeated what Fengzhou had said to them. Finally, they said, go on. Let's just watch the fire. Okay. The two of them nodded and walked forward. When they reached there, they bowed to Xianyuan Mo's. Yama Lord. You guys go up and take a walk too. Xianyuan Mo's gestured for them to go up the Immortal Ascension stairs. Chapter 2877. When they saw another two men with extraordinary auras walking towards the Immortal Ascension stairs, the crowd looked at them strangely and whispered among themselves, why are there two more of them? Didn't they all go up just now? These two people seemed to be in the same group as those who went up before. Yes, it seems so. Just now, they went to the black-robed man with the child before going up the Immortal Ascension stairs. This group of people is really strange. There are both men and women and even a child. They look very weak, but all of them are extremely strong. Others who went up the Immortal Ascension stairs were pushed down by the pressure, or they came down with their tails between their legs. However, all of them advanced up the stairs. I really don't know what kind of luck they have. Hey, where do you think these two people will go? It's hard to say. They're all in the same group. Maybe they went up to the 100th step. Yes, that's not impossible. As everyone discussed, their gazes followed the two people who walked up the stairs. They saw one of the men step on the Immortal Ascension stairs, and his foot directly passed through the Immortal Ascension stairs. He stepped into the air, and his entire body swayed forward. The corners of their mouths twitched. Did this person come here to play? That was the Immortal Ascension stairs. One had to use spiritual power to control the body's balance to walk up the stairs. How could he not step into the air? At this moment, Wei Feng patted his chest and lightly exhaled. Phew, you really gave me a fright. This is really condensed from clouds. Okay, let's go. Let's go up and take a look. As Gu Mo spoke, he took the lead and walked up. Seeing this, Wei Feng also adjusted his spiritual power and walked up. Fengzhou saw the two of them come up from the top and smiled. He walked down and came to their side. Just do your best. There's no need to force yourself. Yes, master. The two of them replied. However, in their hearts, they were thinking that no matter what, they had to reach the 100th step. Otherwise, how could they, the captains of the Phoenix Guards, raise their heads in front of them in the future? Fengzhou didn't know what they were thinking. He just watched them walk up. As time passed, their clothes were drenched in sweat. Their faces were slightly ugly, and their breathing seemed to be unstable. At this time, they had already reached the 93rd step. She wanted to tell them not to force it, but when she saw the determination in their eyes, she swallowed her words. They were all young people, so how could they not want to compete? In particular, Leng Hua, Leng Shuang, Hui Lang, and the others were all above the 100th step. They were the captains of the Phoenix Guards, and they were by her side. Luo Yu and Fanlin could no longer reach the 100th step to break through, so they naturally wanted to fight for their dignity. She sighed in her heart and did not say anything else. She only watched quietly until they crossed the threshold of the 100th step. A trace of blood flowed out from the corner of their mouths. The two of them quickly took out medicinal pills and consumed them. Seeing this, she was startled. Then she smiled. These two people were smart enough to know that it was time to take medicinal pills. Rumble. thunder rumbled, and the clouds in the night sky surged. She narrowed her eyes and looked at the people sitting cross-legged on the immortal ascension stairs. She took a few steps back and silently watched. After watching for a while, she turned around and left. There were no other cultivators coming up here, so there was no need to worry about them being attacked. Thus, she could go down and wait for them to break through. Chapter 2878. Luo Yu, who was at the side, heard this and said faintly, "Master, Fan Lin, Du Fan, and I came here for nothing." Hearing this, Fengjiu laughed. How could that be? She smiled at Luo Yu, who had a bitter look on his face, and said, "You guys can be considered as people who have walked the immortal ascension stairs. Your mental cultivation has also improved. In the future, when the time is right, it will naturally not be a problem for you to advance." She chuckled and continued, "What's more, the few of you have been following me all this while. Now that you've tasted the taste of setbacks, it's also very good. It's impossible for a person to live a smooth life, let alone the Tao of immortality." Hearing this, Luo Yu and Fan Lin's hearts trembled. It was as if they had been enlightened. Instantly, their bodies felt refreshed. The spiritual energy in their bodies also surged. The spiritual energy in their dantians surged like waves on a calm sea, causing their blood to boil. Fengjiu glanced at them and raised his eyebrows. "You too. It seems that your words have made them understand. In addition to the changes in their mental state from the previous experience, they are now about to advance." Xianyuan Mose, who was carrying the child, stood up and said to Fengjiu, "Let Tun Yun and Lao Bai stay here to protect them. Let's go over there."
Okay.
Fengjiu responded and helped the unconscious by Qingqing up. At the same time, he instructed the two contracted beasts behind him. "Guard them well. Don't let anyone plot against them." "Yes, master." Senior White and Tun Yun replied. The originally shrunken Tun Yun stood up, and then his body trembled. With a flash of light, he recovered his majestic and terrifying super divine beast form. On the other hand, Senior White swung his tail and walked up and down in the surroundings. Seeing that the originally unremarkable little pet had actually transformed into a majestic sacred beast, the surrounding cultivators all sucked in a mouthful of cold air and cursed in their hearts for being a freak. Having that mutated super divine beast was already very powerful. That little pet was also a super divine beast? What was the background of this woman in red? How could he be so abnormally strong? On the other side, when Dufan saw them coming over, he quickly went forward to help by Qingqing to a nearby tree to rest. Only then did he look at the two people who were breaking through not far away and asked, "Master, why have the two of them also broken through?" Fengjiu chuckled. "When the time is right, I'll advance." Dufan sighed. "Looks like I'm the most useless one. You have your specialties, don't worry about these things." Fengjiu said, patting him on the shoulder, and said, "Sit down. Let's eat something together."
All right.
As Dufan spoke, he didn't go over to stand guard for them. With Senior White and Tun Yun standing guard there, it would be strange if those cultivators dared to make a move. "Master, they are all advancing up there. I wonder if they will be able to complete their advancement by tomorrow. If they can't, we won't be able to leave tomorrow, right?" "Yes, there's no hurry. We're already here. Let them rest after they break through before we leave." As Fengjiu spoke, he looked at Hao, who was playing with Xianyuan Mose's clothes. He smiled and said, "You must be tired after carrying him for so long. Let me carry you." "No need, you should eat something first," Xianyuan Mose said, letting her eat something first. Hearing this, Fengjiu thought for a while and nodded.
All right.
Chapter 2879. Fengjiu and the rest looked over and saw a 7-colored rainbow appear in the sky. The birds in the forest flapped their wings and flew around the rainbow, chirping. When they listened carefully, they could faintly hear celestial music coming from the clouds and into the ears of the people below. Celestial music. This is celestial music. Someone exclaimed, looking at the scene in the sky in disbelief. Even though they had been cultivating for many years, they rarely saw such a scene. by Ching, who was unconscious, fluttered her eyelashes. The sounds she heard echoed in her mind. Even though her eyelids felt heavy, she tried to open them to take a look. She supported herself on the ground and sat up. Although her head hurt, when she saw the scene in the sky, she could not help but be stunned. Who is breaking through? When Du Fan saw that she was awake, he smiled and said, "You're awake. Other than the two of us, everyone else is breaking through. Look, the celestial music is coming from the clouds because of their breakthroughs, and the seven-colored rainbow as well." Other than the two of us? Bai Qingchen was stunned, her face pale. "I don't remember what happened. Your inner demon was triggered by the illusion, causing your blood to flow in the opposite direction. You'll be fine after a good rest. Don't worry." Fengjiu turned around and said. "Master," Bai Qingchen called out. She seemed to want to say something, but she did not know where to start. On the other side, as time passed, the rainbow in the sky gradually dissipated. The first to descend was Leng Hua, followed by Leng Shuang and the rest. When they reached the ground, Luo Yu and Fan Lin also broke through the threshold and successfully entered the fairy realm. The people around them looked on with envy. They had relied on their own strength to break through, unlike those cultivators who had taken elixirs to break through, and their strength would forever remain stagnant. The cultivators in front of them still had a long way to go. "Master, Yama Lord. Master, Ghost Doctor." They called out in unison. Leng Hua and the others always called out to their master first, followed by Xianyuan Mo's. Hui Lang and Ingyi naturally called out to their master first, followed by Fengjiu. "We have entered the fairy realm," they exclaimed excitedly. "Congratulations," Fengjiu said with a smile. Seeing how happy they were, he gave each of them a pill. "This pill can help you stabilize your dantian quickly." "Many thanks, Master." They were overjoyed. After receiving the pills, they hurriedly took them and adjusted their breathing. "Many thanks, Ghost Doctor." Ing Yi and Huiling also cupped their fists in thanks before sitting down to adjust their breathing. "Du Fan, prepare some food. We need to celebrate today," Fengjiu ordered. "All right, I will go into the forest to hunt some wild animals," Du Fan said with a smile. Just as he was about to leave, Tan Yun leaped up and followed him. "I will go and pick up some branches," Bai Qingqing said as she stood up as well. "Is your body all right?" Fengjiu asked. "Master, don't worry.
I am fine now," she said.
Hearing this, Fengjiu nodded and let Lao Bai and Fire Phoenix follow him. The group of them roasted some wild animals to celebrate. After they had adjusted their breathing and stabilized their strength, Xianyuan Mose took out some wine and said, "Since it is a celebration, we must have wine. Huilang, pour some wine for everyone." Chapter 2880. What if we get drunk here? Luo Yu was a little distressed. "It's rare for us to be so happy today. I'm sure we'll get drunk." "Ha, it's not the wine that gets you drunk, but you get yourself drunk. If you're afraid of getting drunk, drink less." Wei Foam patted his shoulder and said, "It's all right, drink up. I've prepared some hangover pills." Fan Lin said as he took out a bottle and gave each of them a pill. "After eating this, you won't get drunk no matter how much you drink." "Haha, this is good." Du Fan took the pill and ate it. Come, let's drink." Fengjiu saw that they were so happy and drank with them. When he saw that Leng Hua and Bai Qingcheng had only filled half a bowl, he said, "It's all right, drink up. This is spiritual wine. The spiritual energy can nourish your muscles and veins."
"Yes,"
the two of them answered and took a sip of the wine. "Let's all eat some roasted meat." Leng Hua used his knife to cut off a piece of meat and wrapped it in a leaf before handing it to them. The group of people celebrated, eating and drinking. The surrounding cultivators couldn't help but swallow their saliva. Someone said, "It smells so good. How can they roast meat that smells so good?" "That's right. We roasted it ourselves, but it didn't smell like that. Look at them.
How many people are there?"
They're all breaking through to the next level. I'm so jealous."
"Ha ha ha."
"That's because they're all talented. There's no point in being jealous." "Damn it. I don't believe it." I'm going to try the Immortal Ascension Stairs too. What if I can break through to the next level? As a result, many cultivators were provoked and tried to climb up the Immortal Ascension Stairs. However, not long after, some of them came down with pale faces. Some of them were forced down by the pressure of the Immortal Ascension Stairs. The cultivators who were pushed down by the Immortal Ascension Stairs fell heavily to the ground. Their muscles and veins were broken, and their cultivators were crippled. Everyone who saw them sighed. Grey Wolf and the others were eating meat as they watched. They said, "Look, look, look. This Immortal Ascension Staircase is really not something that ordinary people can climb. Those of us who can ascend beyond the 100th step are really blessed by the heavens." Not bad. Fengjiu nodded. Generally speaking, cultivators above the 100th step might not be able to advance. It's your fortune that you are able to advance above the 100th step. Master, when are we leaving?
How do we leave then?
Luo Yu asked curiously. Even if they went up, they would only be able to reach the 100th step. They would not be able to go any further. But at that time, how would their master lead them up the Immortal Ascension Stairs? Fengjiu chuckled. You don't need to know. Naturally, the secret of the space cannot be revealed to them. Even if he wanted to bring them up, they would have to enter the space while unconscious. On this day, they ate and drank to their heart's content and rested until the next morning. Fengjiu and Xianyuan Mose led them out of this place and into the forest. Seeing them leave, the cultivators thought that they should have left. But they were curious. Why didn't the black-robed man go up? And that woman in red? Seeing how she was able to climb up the Immortal Ascension Stairs, it should not be a problem for her to go up. Why was she only protecting those people? Chapter 2881. Some people thought that they hadn't woken up and were seeing things. Thus, they rubbed their eyes and sat up to take a look. It really was those two people. The man in the black robe with a cold face like an iceberg and the beautiful woman in the red dress. The only difference was that these two people were still the same as before. However, the woman in red today was dressed as a man. She was still wearing red robes, but she exuded a different aura. If this woman was said to be enchanting and beautiful when she was wearing a red dress, then when she was dressed as a man, she was wanton and evil. That evil charm and unparalleled temperament gave people a feeling that it was difficult to distinguish between a man and a woman. If they had not seen her in a woman's dress before, they would have really thought that the person in front of them was a man at this moment. Furthermore, the people who had been with them and their contracted beasts had all disappeared. Even the child in their arms had disappeared. They thought that perhaps after sending those people away, the two of them wanted to try the Immortal Ascension Staircase again. In front of the Immortal Ascension Staircase, Xianyuan Mose held Fengjiu's hand. He looked at her and asked softly in a magnetic voice, "Are you ready?" Fengjiu replied and smiled. She had already prepared herself for a new and unfamiliar environment. Even though it was unfamiliar, with him by her side, she had nothing to fear. They held hands and walked up the Immortal Ascension Staircase. Their steps were calm and unhurried. Every step they took was filled with confidence. It was as if they were not walking up the Immortal Ascension Staircase, nor were they walking down the Immortal Ascension Staircase to another world. It was as if they were taking a stroll in their own backyard. The two of them walked up the Immortal Ascension Staircase together. They did not know how long they had been walking up the Immortal Ascension Staircase. They only knew that they were getting closer and closer to the top. Fengjiu had been here before, and it was easy for him. As for Xianyuan Mose, although it was his first time, he did not feel any pressure. However, unlike Fengjiu, he did not ascend the Immortal Ascension Staircase to the next level. It was only when the two of them reached the top of the staircase that they stopped and looked at each other. This is the profound light gate. After passing through here, it will be another world. Fengjiu looked at Xianyuan Mose and said, "The last time I came here, I heard a few old monsters talking over there. It should be an expert from that side." Xianyuan Mose said, "I wonder where we will appear after we pass through this place?" She was a little curious. What kind of place would appear after the step? When Mo Chen walked here, where did he appear? He had gone there alone. So where could he be now? No matter where we are, I will be by your side. He held her hand tightly and said, Don't worry, let's go.
And
She replied and held his hand tightly as they walked forward. The two of them took the last step and walked into the profound light gate. They felt a force sucking them in. Light flashed in front of them, and they suddenly felt dizzy. Chapter 2882. When he saw this, his deep black eyes couldn't help but flash. A trace of surprise flashed across his eyes. He whispered to Fengjie, who was in his arms, Jio, we seem to have arrived at someone else's sect.
ah,
Fengjie poked her head out of his arms and looked around. When she saw this, she was stunned. It's so lively. Don't tell me we've bumped into their annual competition? Below them, a sea of people had gathered. It seemed like there was more than one sect because everyone was wearing the same color robes. On the high platform in the middle, the two people fighting on the high platform were also stunned by the sudden appearance of the crowd and stopped fighting. At this time, the people below were a little dumbfounded. Several of them were participating in the annual competition. Suddenly, a dazzling light flashed in the sky. A vortex appeared, and a black figure suddenly appeared in their line of sight. However, when they focused their eyes, they saw a red figure poke her head out from the black figure's arms. When they looked closely, they saw that it was a man in a black robe who was holding a red-robed young man. In broad daylight, two men hugging each other appeared in front of everyone's eyes. This scene almost stunned everyone below. They had only seen a man hugging a woman, but they had never seen a man hugging a man. Where did these two come from? They couldn't have come down from the Immortal Ascension Stairs, right? If they came down from the Immortal Ascension Stairs, why would they be hugging each other? And they're both men? Could it be that people from the other side like this? Hey, look, that man in the black robe looks very, how should I describe it? A man on the side continued. The man in the black robe has a sharp aura. He exudes a powerful pressure and a noble aura. His face is handsome, but it doesn't lose its coldness. Without mentioning anything else, just his appearance alone is enough to surpass Dongfang Qianjue, the leader of the 10 heavens favorites of the 4 major celestial sects. I didn't think that a place like that could give birth to someone who is comparable to a god. At that moment, the eyes of the venerables from the various sects flickered when they saw the two people who suddenly appeared. In particular, the eyes of a few of them lit up when they saw the beautiful face that peeked out from the black-robed man's arms. It's her, the little girl that they had taken a fancy to this time. It was also at this moment that Shenyuan Mose landed steadily on the stage with Fengjie in tow. After he steadied himself, he let go of Fengjie's waist and released her from his embrace. What's wrong? Are you okay? He ignored the people around him and lowered his head to ask Fengjie, who was in his arms.
I'm fine.
Fengjie blinked as she looked at the people around her. At the same time, she walked out of Shenyuan Mose's arms. I'm so sorry, we seem to have disturbed you, Fengjie said apologetically. She cupped her hands at the two people on the stage. At this moment, the people saw that the young man hiding in the black-robed man's arms was an extremely handsome young man. The young man was wearing a dazzling red robe. His black hair was tied up and draped behind his back. His clear eyes were smiling and the corners of his lips were slightly curled, revealing a devilish smile. His actions were carefree and casual. He looked just like a young master from a wealthy family. They couldn't help but be stunned. Chapter 2883. Ha ha ha. A hearty and excited laugh broke the strange atmosphere. A middle-aged man dressed in loose robes stood up and looked at Fengjie. Aren't you Fengjie? I've been waiting for you for a long time. What do you mean you've been waiting for her for a long time? I'm the one who made the decision to take her in. An old monster dressed in white robes who looked like a 7- or 8-year-old child spoke up. He smiled and squinted his eyes as he stared at Fengjie and waved his hand. It's me. Do you recognize my voice? Fengjie, I was the one who insisted on opening the stairway to immortality. So, for you to be able to come here, it must have something to do with me. You can ignore the rest of them. A beautiful woman said as she stared at Fengjie. The more she looked at him, the more she liked him. Who would have thought that this little girl would be so stunning when she was dressed as a woman? But when she was dressed as a man, she was still so mesmerizing. Her eyes were fixed on Fingjiu, and she ignored Xianyuan Mose, who was standing next to Fingjiu. She was completely focused on Fingjiu. What do you mean by insisting on it? We were the ones who suggested it. An old man next to her said unhappily. That's right. We've already agreed that if she wants to go, she can choose for herself. The old monster, who looked like a child, said. His old voice suddenly changed, and he spoke to Fengjiu innocently. You can choose me. I'm good. I'm better than all of them. If you become my disciple, I guarantee that you'll always be a child.
Puffed.
If she's like you, then she'll be miserable. She won't be able to grow up. You're an old monster, but you still look like a child. Isn't that disgusting? Even now, you're still thinking of harming others? The beautiful woman next to her sneered and mocked her mercilessly. Am I as disgusting as you? You're obviously an old witch, yet you still act like a young girl. You dress up all day long. What do you think you're doing? You don't have the demeanor of a venerable at all. I'll be miserable if I follow you. What are you talking about, you old bastard? What's wrong with calling you an old witch? You old bastard. Seeing the two of them quarreling there, the surrounding people were dumbfounded. What the hell is going on? Why would two venerables suddenly quarrel in front of so many people? Also, did they know this red-clothed youth? Why were they all fighting for him to become their disciple? Xianyuan Mose looked at the scene in front of him and asked, Are these the people you mentioned last time? Why did they look so strange? However, it was undeniable that the strength of these people was unfathomable. I haven't seen them before, but it sounds like them. As she spoke, she saw them quarreling there, so she looked at them and asked, Venerable ones, may I ask something? As soon as she spoke, the two of them stopped quarreling and turned to look at Fingjiu at the same time. They smiled amiably. Fingjiu, what do you want to ask? Ask away. Ask away. Seeing this, the crowd below could not help but be stunned. Were these still the two cold-faced venerable ones that they knew? Why did it seem like they were being treated differently? Chapter 2884. Fengjiu smiled when he saw the two of them and said, I want to ask, where is this place? If we want to leave, which direction should we go? The childlike supremacy widened his eyes when he heard that. Leave? You want to leave? If you're already here, just stay. Why are you leaving? That's right. Just stay and become my disciple. You can choose any cave abode you want to stay in, the beautiful woman said. When Xianyuan Mo saw this, he said, We can talk about leaving or staying later. Right now, it's not suitable for us to stay on this stage. If we continue to talk, the competition on this stage will not be able to continue. The two of them regained their senses when they heard this. That's right. The competition is still going on. They turned around and saw the four sect leaders looking in their direction. They smiled and said, That's true. Come, follow us. Don't stand on this stage and disturb their competition. Let me introduce you. As they spoke, they gestured for Xianyuan Mose and Fingjiu to follow them to their seats on the stage. They then said to the two cultivators who were still standing on the stage, Continue. The two cultivators smiled bitterly. A good competition had been interrupted, and now they were asked to continue? Why did it feel like everyone's attention was no longer on them? How could they continue? On the other side, the two of them led Xianyuan Mose and Fingjiu to the stage where more than 10 people were seated. They smiled at Xianyuan Mose and Fingjiu and said, These are the sect leaders of the four major immortal sects, the four immortal dukes. You're lucky to have come at the right time. For immortal dukes who usually don't show their faces are all here. Greetings, immortal dukes. Fengjiu bowed and sized up the four of them. Xianyuan Mose nodded slightly, but didn't salute. When they saw the two of them, more than 10 people's eyes flickered. A strange look flashed across their eyes. From the moment they appeared, they had been sizing them up. With their cultivations, they could naturally tell that the young man in red was actually a woman. Moreover, the two people in front of them were extremely young, but their strength was already comparable to the teachers of the Celestial Gate. This red-clothed woman called Fengjiu bowed to them, but there was not much respect in her eyes or in her actions. It was as if to her, bowing to them was just a form of etiquette, and not the etiquette of a junior taking a senior as a disciple. The black-robed man was cold and arrogant. One look, and one could tell that he had been in a high position for a long time. When he saw them, he only looked at them and nodded slightly. Obviously, he was a venerable who had been in a high position for a long time. He would not lower himself to do anything. Condescending? With their strength, cultivation, and age, they were definitely able to accept his bow. However, the arrogance of young people still made the four immortal dukes smile. The four of them did not take the disrespect of the two of them seriously. However, the venerables of the four sects who were sitting at the side were somewhat dissatisfied. Especially when they saw the four of them fighting over the two of them, they wanted to know what was so special about the two of them. This is Fengjiu, this is. The child-faced venerable looked at Xianyuan Mose and asked, "What's your name?" Xianyuan Mose. He reported his name. "Oh, Xianyuan Mose." He nodded and said to the four immortal dukes, "This is Xianyuan Mose. These two are not bad. What do you think?" Chapter 2885. To be praised by four immortal monarchs and fought over by four venerables, I really want to know what abilities these two have to be able to receive such high praise. I think the disciples of the four sects below the stage have the same thoughts as me, right? The man who looked to be in his 30s stood up with his hands clasped behind his back. His voice was neither loud nor soft, but because it contained a powerful aura of spiritual energy, it clearly spread to the surroundings, allowing the disciples of the four sects to hear his words clearly. That's right. We really want to see what's so special about these two cultivators from the lower realm. That's right. Their appearance has disrupted our competition. Since that's the case, why don't we challenge them and see what abilities they have? That's right. Let's see what abilities they have. That's right. I also have the same thoughts as the venerables. Voices of different pitches came from below, and the voices grew louder and louder. Each voice carried a powerful aura of spiritual energy, causing the air in the sky to tremble slightly. Xianyuan Mose and Fengjiu narrowed their eyes and felt the changes in the aura in the air. They couldn't help but think to themselves, this is the pressure formed by the convergence of so many powerhouses. It's a pressure that can affect the air. Seeing this scene, the corners of the venerable's lips curled up slightly, revealing a trace of a smile. As for the child-faced venerables, the beautiful venerables, and the other two people, when they saw this scene, they frowned slightly, feeling that this was a bit inappropriate. Fengjiu raised his eyebrows at the scene and said to Xianyuan Mose beside him, "Why do I feel like these people want to bully us?" Xianyuan Mose reached out and put his arm around her shoulder, saying, "Don't worry, I'm here." His deep black eyes were like two cold rays of light as they shot towards the man who started this matter. The venerables looked towards Xianyuan Mose, but unexpectedly met his icy gaze. In that instant, his entire body couldn't help but shiver, and he couldn't help but take a step back. After realizing this, he glared at Xianyuan Mose with some embarrassment and anger. He walked up to him and said, "Xianyuan Mose, do you dare to accept my disciple's challenge?" Hearing this, Fengjiu smiled and asked, "Why should we accept your challenge?" That's right, that's right. Just ignore him." The child-faced venerable one continued, "Let's go. I'll bring you guys to rest. We'll talk about the rest later." "Wait!" The venerable one shouted in a deep voice as he stood in front of Fengjiu and Xianyuan Mose. He glanced at the two of them before he looked at the venerable one with a child's face and said, "Venerable Lingmu, they've disrupted the competition of the four sections. It doesn't seem right to let them off just like that, right?" Xianyuan Mose glanced at that person and said in a deep and cold voice, "Since you want to compete, why don't you be my opponent?" As soon as he said this, the surrounding people were in an uproar and gasped. They only felt that Xianyuan Mose was too arrogant. That was a venerable one of the sects, not a disciple. How weak could a venerable one be? He actually wanted that venerable one to be his opponent? Was he not courting death? Chapter 2886. You're courting death. The Honorable One's face darkened when he heard that. He was a dignified Honorable One, and even if he won, it would not be honorable. However, this Xianyuan Mose dared to call himself a lord in front of him, and even dared to challenge him? How presumptuous. Since you don't dare, then get lost. Xianyuan Mose flicked his sleeve, and a wave of pressure that could be seen with the naked eye rolled out. It caught the Honorable One off guard, and pushed him back a few meters. Seeing this, the crowd below could not help but widen their eyes and exclaim, "No way." The Honorable One flew into a rage out of humiliation. He glared at Xianyuan Mose with red eyes. "Since you're courting death, I'll grant you your wish." As soon as he finished speaking, his figure flashed forward. His powerful spiritual aura surged, forming a sharp airflow that followed his movements and attacked Xianyuan Mose. "Wait at the side." Xianyuan Mose reached out his hand and sent Fengjiu to a safe place. With a flick of his black robe, he blocked the airflow that was attacking him. At the same time, his spiritual aura and pressure also surged out from his body. He used his hand as a palm and his spiritual power as a sword. His black figure flashed like a ghost. When he avoided the Honorable One's attack, he also changed from defense to offense. Every move was sharp and fierce. The Honorable One's strength was also at the heavenly god realm. After the exchange of blows, he realized that Xianyuan Mose's strength was very strong. At that moment, he used 100% of his strength to deal with him. Every move he made was a sure kill move, and there was no room for mercy. Fengjiu watched from the side. Her clear eyes narrowed slightly, and a cold light flashed across her eyes. She looked calm, but the murderous intent in her heart surged. When the four Honorable Ones at the side saw this, they could not help but feel anxious. No matter who was injured, it would not be easy to deal with them. If the Honorable One was injured, based on his temperament, there would be no end to it. If Xianyuan Mose was injured, the two of them would probably not be willing to stay in the sect. They just couldn't understand how things had suddenly turned out this way. Immediately, they went to where the four Immortal Dukes were. "Immortal Dukes, it's not good to continue like this, right? What if someone is injured?"
It's all right.
"It's inevitable that someone will be injured in a spar. They'll stop." One of them stroked his beard and said with a smile, "And even if we really can't hold back, us old guys will still make a move. It's a good opportunity to see the strength of these two people. It's very rare." Hearing these words, the few people knew that they would not let the two people stop. They could only wait anxiously at the side. The Honorable One, and the Immortal Dukes and the Honorable One, they'll Xianyuan Moses. Xianyuan Mose. A few dukes, the Honorable One, dukes, S's, dukes. Fengjiu played with the hair that fell in front of her chest. Her gaze fell on Xianyuan Mose in front of her. She slowly said, I'm not worried." She was not worried because she knew that the Honorable One's strength was not Moses' match. However, this person wanted to take Moses' life with every move. His vicious and bloodthirsty attacks displeased her. Hence, she had already thought it through. As long as he dared to hurt her Mose, she would definitely make him understand that he could not hurt anyone. When the two Honorable Ones heard Fengjiu's words and looked at her expression, they felt that it was a little strange. However, they could not pinpoint what was strange. However, seeing that she was still calm, they did not say anything. Instead, they continued to watch the battle in front of them. Chapter 2887. Looking at the scene in front of them, they couldn't help but widen their eyes in astonishment. That chi blade came from Xianyuan Mose's hand and slashed across the Supremacy's face. That slash left a deep gash on his face and fresh blood spurted out, making his entire face look somewhat ferocious. That Supremacy seemed to be in disbelief and stopped for a moment. He raised his hand to touch his wounded cheek. The pain on his cheek and the blood on his hand made him want to kill someone. "Xianyuan Mose, I'd like to see how you're going to die." His voice was gloomy, and a murderous aura surged out from his body. It was expressed in his voice, his eyes, and his actions. A bright and sharp blade appeared in his hand. He held it in a reverse grip, gritted his teeth, and changed his pace and figure to attack. The reverse grip of the blade in his hand drew out several blade shadows in an instant. His attack was mixed with a raging fighting spirit, so his speed was also increased. Xianyuan Mo's remained unarmed as the other party brandished their swords. Xianyuan Mo's, who originally had the upper hand in the battle, gradually fell into a disadvantageous position as the other party attacked like a madman. There were several times when the other party's swords almost stabbed him in the vital areas. Fengjiu watched from the side. His gaze moved slightly, and the evil charm on his face disappeared. What replaced it was a cold and sharp expression. The people from the 4 sects below were all stunned. They didn't make a sound. They only saw that the black-robed man called Xianyuan Mo's had slashed that supremacy's face. Such a deep wound would probably leave a scar, even if it healed. What shocked them even more was that the supremacy had actually taken out a weapon. He was actually trying to use the sword in his hand to injure Xianyuan Mo's. In this way, even if he won, it wouldn't be honorable. Immortal Monarch, should we ask them to stop? If this continues, I'm afraid, a supremacy said. He couldn't help but frown when he saw this scene. There's no hurry. Their strength is still being stimulated. Let them fight. A immortal monarch said and waved his hand, indicating that there was no need to say more. Fengjiu glanced at those people and saw that they were all watching with great interest. They were treating this battle of life and death as a show. She curled her lips and sneered silently. In front of her, the sound of robes being torn was heard. Fengjiu looked over and saw that Xianyuan Mo's robes had been slashed. Perhaps it was because his skin wasn't injured and there wasn't any blood. At this moment, she saw that when Xianyuan Mo's leaned forward to fight, he kicked the blade in his opponent's hand. The blade was tossed into the air and then fell on the stage. Of the supremacy's attack. The venerable one whose blade was kicked was enraged. He lunged forward in an attempt to fight in close combat, but Xianyuan Mo's kicked him in the ribs. Even Fengjiu, who was standing at the side, could faintly hear the sound of bones breaking. The cracking sound was extremely clear.
Ah!
A miserable shriek rang out as the venerable one was kicked off the stage by Xianyuan Mo's, and he fell towards the crowd of cultivators and disciples below who were dumbfounded by what they saw.
Hiss!
Supremacy. Chapter 2888. After the exclamations, there was a strange silence. Everyone stared at the black-robed man on the high platform as if they had seen a ghost. He actually defeated a supremacy? That was a supremacy of a sect. How could a supremacy, with the strength of a heavenly god, lose to a cultivator from the lower realm? When did a cultivator from the lower realm become so powerful? At that moment, the immortal monarchs involuntarily stood up, their faces filled with astonishment. They had thought that the supremacy of the sect would win in the end, so they had not stopped the fight. They had even thought that the black-robed man should suffer a setback for his arrogance and pride. They had not expected that he would be slapped in the face. A supremacy of a sect had actually lost to a cultivator from the lower realm. If this were to spread, they would become a joke. Earlier, the black-robed man's speed had been so swift that they hadn't been able to stop him or lend a hand in time. They could only watch helplessly as the scene unfolded before their eyes. Fengjiu watched with a smile, his face filled with pride. This was her man.
Hers.
Look at how outstanding he was. On the high platform, the handsome, godlike man in black robes stood with one hand behind his back and the other hand on his abdomen. His black robes fluttered in the wind, and he exuded an incomparably noble aura. A powerful, sharp, and intimidating pressure filled the air. After this battle, his name, Xianyuan Mo's, and his magnificence were deeply imprinted in the minds of the tens of thousands of disciples of the 4 sects. My goodness, he's even more powerful than Fengjiu. Supremacy Lingmu blinked, his mouth wide open in shock. He had not expected this kid to be so powerful without making a sound. It was true that a true master did not show his true colors. Oh, he's not bad. I didn't expect you to have such good taste. This kid is not bad. The beautiful supremacy glanced at Fengjiu with her beautiful eyes. Fengjiu proudly raised his chin, looking as proud as a fox. Of course, don't you know whose man he is? Since you're so powerful, I'd like to experience it for myself. Another venerable one from a sect slammed the table and flew out. He stood in the middle of the stage and stared at Xianyuan Mose with a sharp gaze. Do you dare to accept my challenge? Before Xianyuan Mose could say anything, Fengjiu, who was always protective of his people, could not stand it. She snorted coldly and walked out. She walked up to the venerable one and said, I couldn't tell. Didn't see anything? The venerable one glanced at Fengjiu, who was dressed as a man, and frowned slightly. A woman was dressed as a man for no reason. What a mess. Fengjiu glanced at him and said softly, I didn't expect you to be so thick-skinned. You. The venerable one was furious. He wanted to attack, but he felt that it would be beneath his dignity to attack a woman, so he snorted coldly. How dare you? He released a powerful divine might, which suddenly enveloped Fengjiu. It was as if he wanted to use his divine might to force her to retreat. But who would have thought that after he released his divine might, the woman in front of him still stood in front of him with the same expression as before. She raised her eyebrows and looked at him with a contemptuous gaze, which annoyed him. Chapter 2889. Fengjiu ignored him and said to Xianyuan Mose, Let's go. This place isn't very good. Hearing this, everyone's mouths twitched. This place wasn't very good? This was where the immortal sects were located. So many cultivators wanted to join this sect, yet he said it wasn't very good? Hey, don't go. Venerable Spiritwood stopped them with a smile. Come to my place and sit on my mount. Once you're there, no one will dare to disrespect you. How about it? Let's go, shall we? Fengjiu looked at the child who was only half her waist and kept saying such words. She only felt very strange. Although she knew that this child was an old monster who was hundreds of years old, the visual impact still made her feel that this was just a child. Therefore, she smiled and said, Venerable Spiritwood, right? Not bad, not bad. You actually remembered my name. He was obviously very happy and looked at Fengjiu with a smile.
It's like this.
I don't plan to become a disciple of anyone, so I won't stay here for long. Moreover, I don't have a good impression of this place. She said with a smile, but there was no trace of a smile in her eyes. Venerable Spiritwood knew that the tacit consent of the immortal lords had angered her. He sighed inwardly. This little girl was only one step away from entering the profound light sect, but she didn't come over. It was obvious that she was a very casual person. It was also because they understood this point that they wanted to take him in as their disciple. But who would have thought that they would come here today to coincide with the competition between the four great sects? Now that this matter had happened, it seemed that they could not force this person to stay. Thinking of this, he nodded. Since that's the case, all right. I won't force you. When the beautiful venerable saw this, she said, I also don't want to force you. However, Fengjiu, my place is really good. Do you really not want to reconsider? Thank you, venerable lord, but there's no need. She shook her head and refused. All right then. In that case, I'll send you down the mountain, the beautiful venerable lord said. Just as she was about to walk forward, she heard a voice.
Wait.
A venerable lord stood up and walked forward with his hands behind his back. If you leave after injuring our sect's venerable lord, wouldn't our immortal sect become a joke? What? Are you all trying to stop us and prevent us from leaving? Are you really the exalted lords of some celestial sect? Fengjiu glanced at the middle-aged man with a smile that was not a smile. It's very simple. You've already defeated a supremacy. As long as you accept our challenge and win against us, you can leave if you want. We won't stop you. However, if you lose, his voice paused as his gaze fell upon the two of them. He then said meaningfully, if you lose, the two of you will have to acknowledge us as your masters. Become a disciple of our sect. Upon hearing this, Venerable Spiritwood jumped up. You bastard, CK. You're SSS. I tried every possible way to persuade them, but they weren't willing to take me as their master. You're actually using such a despicable method to make them compete with you two old fellows? You should be thick-skinned and tell me, how old are you this year? Chapter 2890. That's right, Lingmu. Stop messing around. The other middle-aged man also berated Venerable Lingmu. The two of them were his senior brothers and were of higher seniority than him, so they naturally had the right to berate him. Venerable Lingmu couldn't help but blush when he was yelled at by the two of them. He said angrily, "Fine, fine, go ahead. I don't care, I'll just watch." He angrily flung his sleeves and returned to his seat. When the beautiful Venerable saw this, she covered her red lips and giggled. "Senior brother CK, this doesn't seem very generous. Who doesn't know that you and senior brother Mu Xin are the strongest venerables of our generation? If you fight them, won't you win for sure? My master is right. Aren't we just taking advantage of our seniority? Bullying the weak? I've been in the sect for so long, but this is the first time I found out that Venerable CK is such a person." A graceful and charming voice sounded. When the disciples heard this voice, they were all delighted. "It's Martial Aunt Wanyan. Martial Aunt Wanyan is here. I didn't expect her to actually come." Everyone says that Martial Aunt Wanyan is the #1 beauty of the four sects and doesn't usually show her face. I didn't expect her to actually come today. That's great. I've wanted to see Martial Aunt Wanyan for a long time. Today, I can finally see her face. The disciples below were all excited. The originally silent scene became lively as they all looked in the direction of the voice. Fengjiu, who was standing next to Xianyuan Mose, felt that the voice was vaguely familiar. Just as he was thinking about it, he saw a red figure riding on a red-crowned crane. Her red clothes fluttered in the wind, and her black hair fluttered gently. At first glance, Fengjiu couldn't help but be delighted. He waved at the newcomer. "Big sister." The newcomer was actually her sworn sister, Wanyan Qianhua. No wonder she hadn't heard any news of her over there. So she had come here? What's more, he didn't expect to meet her here. When Xianyuan Mose heard Fengjiu's words, he also looked at the woman. Wanyan Qianhua. A Jew had once mentioned that she was an elder sister who had become sworn brothers with her. However, after the 100 Years Mountain, they had never had the chance to meet. They did not expect to meet here. In the past, he had only heard her say that the Wanyan Qianhua was good in every way. Now that he saw it, the woman in red who came on the immortal crane was indeed a stunning beauty. Although she liked to wear red like his Jew, she wore two different styles. Wanyan Qianhua, who was sitting on the red-crowned crane, immediately saw the dazzling red figure on the high platform. Looking at that beautiful and exquisite face, which was still so familiar, she couldn't help but smile. She gently patted the red-crowned crane's head and landed on the high platform. "Xiao Jiu, it's really you." As soon as Wanyan Qianhua saw her, she went forward and hugged her. However, when the softness in front of her chest touched Fengjiu's stiff and flat chest, she lowered her head in confusion. At the same time, she reached out and touched it again and again. "Where are your breasts? What a sin! You actually tied them flat? How much suffering do you have to suffer?" A few black lines streaked across Fengjiu's forehead. She didn't even have time to react. Her sister actually did such a thing in front of so many people. It really made her speechless. Chapter 2891. Xianyuan Mose's face darkened when he saw this. If it wasn't for the fact that this person was a woman and was a Zhou's sworn sister, he would definitely chop off the hands that were touching her chest. "Sister, pay attention to your image." Fengjiu pulled her hands down helplessly and said, "That's true." Wanyan Qianhua covered her mouth and smiled coquettishly. After glancing at Fengjiu, she sized up Xianyuan Mose at the side. Then, she shifted her gaze and looked at the two venerables at the side. "Venerable CK Mu Xian, Fengjiu is my sister. Don't bully her. Otherwise he. Her beautiful eyes turned, and the light in her eyes flowed. Her slender jade-like hands played with her hair, and she said lightly, "I'll be angry." Upon hearing this and looking at Wan Yen Qianhua's expression, the two venerables shuddered. This evildoer's smile was definitely not a good thing. When they thought of the time when she first came here, she would hold the 10,000 ghost banner and collect ghosts every night. The howls of the ghosts still made them feel like it was yesterday. Fengjiu looked at Wan Yen Qianhua with excitement in her eyes. Look, 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 this was her sworn sister. She even dared to threaten the venerables. As expected of her sister. Aya, Qianhua, so this is your sister? When the beautiful venerables heard this, her eyes immediately smiled into a line. That's really a case of not entering the same family. Fengjiu, don't you think so? Your sister has already become my disciple. You should come too. Xiao Jiu, this is my master, Venerable Shuiyu. Wan Yen Qianhua said. Fengjiu greets Venerable Shuiyu. She bowed respectfully. Of course, it was for her sister's sake. We're all family.
There's no need to be so polite.
You can ask your sister, and you'll know. I treat these disciples like my own sisters. She covered her red lips and chuckled. Her beautiful eyes fell on Fengjiu. Fengjiu heard this and smiled. He only said to Wan Yen Qianhua, Sister, we just arrived here. After we settle down, we'll come and meet you again. Come to my place and stay for 2 days. I'll accompany you down the mountain later. Wan Yen Qianhua said. Before that, shouldn't you fight with us first? Venerables CK spoke again. He looked at Fengjiu and Xianyuan Mose and said, The Immortal Ascension Ladder only opens once a year. It was Ling Mu and Venerable Shuiyu who suggested that it be opened. Now that you've come from there, it can be considered fate with our sect. However, you've injured our sect leaders' venerables. It's one thing if you join our sect, but if you don't, how can we let you leave just like that? What will happen to our sect's reputation? He looked at the two of them and said in a low voice, For today's battle, even if you don't want to, you still have to. Venerables CK, are you trying to force them? Wan Yen Qianhua's expression turned cold. The aura around him changed. The chilling feeling immediately made the people around him shudder involuntarily. Chapter 2892. Under such circumstances, the immortal sect naturally wanted to recruit them into their sect. However, since they could not get them to join their sect with good words, they wanted to use their strength to suppress them. They wanted to let Xianyuan Mose and Fengjiu know that there was always someone better than them. No matter how strong they were no match for the immortal sect's supremacies. If they did not subdue the two of them, the immortal sect's reputation would be tarnished after this battle. Therefore, the immortal sect was pressuring them to accept their challenge. That said, the challenge was not fair. Xianyuan Mose could defeat that supremacy, but he might not be able to defeat senior brother C. Quebec. Moreover, even if he had a slight chance of winning, Fengjiu's small body would probably defeat senior brother Mu Xian. After all, these two were the strongest supremacies in their generation. At this point, the immortal sect's immortal master did not speak up to stop them. Evidently, he had tacitly approved of their challenge. Under such tacit approval, even Wan Yen Qianhua could not stop them. Xianyuan Mose, who had been silent all this while, glanced at the two people in front of him with his deep, dark eyes. He had been sizing them up since the moment they said they wanted to challenge him. After weighing the pros and cons, he felt that they could fight. Moreover, he knew that if he and Audiobook were to emerge victorious, not only would they become famous among the four sects, but they would also have a certain amount of deterrence. Thinking of the benefits they would gain from this battle, he glanced at Fengjiu and said, Audiobook, since they want to fight us again and again, why don't we accept their challenge? Hearing this, Fengjiu looked at the two people. After thinking for a while, he smiled and said, It's easy if you want to fight us. However, we have a prior agreement. Otherwise, who knows what tricks you'll play after this battle. Our words carry enormous weight, especially in front of so many people. How could we go back on our words? CK's supremacy said in a low voice, as if he was very displeased with Fengjiu's questioning. Fengjiu glanced at him and said leisurely, Who would believe that? You? He glared angrily. He was a supremacy. How could he go back on his words? This Fengjiu was really infuriating. Since you want to fight, we will only fight with you if the heavens and earth bear witness. Otherwise, there is no need to talk about it. She smiled, her eyes slightly curved, and a trace of calculation flashed through the depths of her eyes. Good. Supremacy CK opened his mouth to speak, but Fengjiu interrupted him.
Hold on.
Fengjiu said, stopping him from continuing. If we lose, we have to acknowledge you as our masters. Similarly, if you lose, you have to acknowledge us as your masters. This is ridiculous. Both Venerable CK and Mu Xian widened their eyes in astonishment, flinging their sleeves and cursing. They were venerable ones, and they wanted to take them as their masters? How could this be? If word got out, he would be a laughingstock. Ridiculous? Fengjiu raised his eyebrows and asked, This is clearly a very fair thing. How is it ridiculous? Besides, we haven't fought yet, have we? Are you already afraid? If that's the case, why are you still competing with us? Can't you just let us go?
You.
Chapter 2893. At this moment, the two of them would never have thought that Fengjiu was scheming against them. They did not think that Xianyuan Mose and Fengjiu were stronger than them. Even if they were at the same level as the two of them, they would not be able to defeat them. Wanyan Qianhua saw this and glanced at Fengjiu. Seeing her smile at her, she was relieved. Based on her understanding of Fengjiu, she would not do something that she was not confident of. In this case, she would just wait and see. Xianyuan Mose did not doubt Fengjiu's words. His gaze fell on the two of them. Seeing that they were hesitating, he asked, What's wrong? You don't dare? What a joke. How can we not dare? Mu Xian snorted coldly. She stared sharply at Xianyuan Mose and said, In front of so many people, in front of heaven and earth, if I, Mu Xian, lose today, I will acknowledge the winner as my master. If I go back on my words, heaven and earth will punish me. CK also said, Same for me, C. Quebec. If I lose, I will acknowledge the winner as my master. If I go back on my words, heaven and earth will punish me. Hearing this, Xianyuan Mose and Fengjiu smiled at each other and said at the same time, I, Xianyuan Mose, Fengjiu, if I lose this battle, I will acknowledge the winner as my master. If I go back on my words, heaven and earth will punish me. Good. CK and Mu Xian shouted at the same time. She looked at the two of them and said, Remember what you said. Of course. The two of them replied. The four immortal monarchs and the venerables around them were dumbfounded. They did not recover for a long time. Why did they suddenly swear an oath to heaven and earth? Did they make a mistake somewhere? The disciples of the four sects looked at the scene and did not understand. Why did it suddenly become like this? However, they knew that the venerables of their sects would win in the end. Therefore, everyone's interest was aroused by the oath to heaven and earth. They all shouted for the competition to start quickly. Seeing that the disciples were in high spirits, Fengjiu's eyes moved slightly. She said to Wanyan Qianhua, Sister, I have something to say to you. Hearing this, Wanyan Qianhua walked to the side with her and asked, What's wrong? Sister, this is such a good opportunity. Let's set up a bet. Fengjiu looked at her with sparkling eyes with a hint of excitement. I think these disciples are all rich. They should have a lot of treasures on them. Whether it's crystal coins or anything else, you can bet them all. Hearing this, Wanyan Qianhua was stunned for a moment. Then, she smiled and said, Okay, be careful.
Leave the rest to me.
She patted Qin Shue's hand and walked to the side. Fengjiu came to Xianyuan Mose's side. Looking at CK and Mu Xian, he asked, How do you want to fight? 1-on-1 or 2-on-2? Fengjiu, you're quite arrogant. You dare to leave the choice to us. CK glanced at Fengjiu and Xianyuan Mose. Then, she turned to Mu Xian and asked, What do you think? It doesn't matter. 2-on-2 is fine too. We can choose one of these two and let them acknowledge us as their masters at the same time. Mu Xian said. She obviously felt that victory was in her hands. Whether it was Xianyuan Mo's or Fengjiu, she had to admit that these two were very outstanding. Hearing this, Fengjiu smiled.
Okay.
2-on-2 then. It'll be faster to finish it in one round. Chapter 2894. The two cultivators who had retreated to the side on the high platform had already jumped down and stood below the platform to watch. The supremacies who were seated watched this scene with interest in their eyes. Only the four immortal lords from the immortal sects were deep in thought and puzzlement. Wanyan Qianhua's voice was heard from the other side. I'll start a game. Let's bet on who will win. Anyone who is interested can have a share. Her voice was seductive and charming. Upon hearing her words, the disciples below rushed to her side and took out gold coins or crystal stones to place their bets. The supremacies who were seated on the high platform saw this and could not help but shake their heads. Wanyan Qianhua is really too.
To what?
I've never had to worry about my disciples. I'm just setting up a small game to liven things up.
What?
Do you have a problem with it? Venerable Snow Jade cast a sidelong glance at the man who had just spoken. It was as if she would fight him if he continued to speak. Seeing her like this, the supremacy did not say anything else. Everyone knew that Supremacy Snow Jade was not to be trifled with and that she was vengeful. If she targeted them, they could guarantee that nothing good would happen. Fengjiu watched as Wanyan Qianhua drew a space on the ground and wrote down their names and the supremacies for those who wanted to place their bets. She could not help but narrow her eyes when she saw a small mountain of money piled up in front of the two supremacies' names. She said to Xianyuan Mo's beside her, "The people here are really rich." Xianyuan Mo's looked back and said, "We've made a fortune today." "Yes, I think so too." She nodded with a smile. Not only would they have two more disciples to order around, but they would also win a lot of money and build up their reputation. Yes, this battle was indeed worth it. Be careful, Xianyuan Mo's reminded her. Yes, I know, Fengjiu replied and pulled away from him. She looked at the two supremacies who were talking and asked, "Can we begin?" The two supremacies looked at the immortal monarchs of their sections. When the immortal monarch saw this, he said, "Don't overdo it. Don't kill. Let's begin." As soon as he finished speaking, the venerables on the stage and the disciples of the four sects below the stage all quieted down. They all held their breaths as they looked at the four people on the stage. This was a 2-versus-2 battle, and the two of them were going against the two strongest venerable ones in the sect. Although the result was expected, they could not help but feel nervous and expectant. Two venerables making a move. What kind of intense scene would it be? In an instant, everyone felt that something was different. The four people on the stage exuded a strong pressure. This pressure spread in the air and condensed on the stage. Even the audience below the stage could feel that Xianyuan Mo's and Fengjiu's pressure was different from before. Look, why does their aura seem to have changed? Yes, it seems to have become somewhat powerful. It seems to be very powerful. Moreover, this kind of power is not inferior to the two venerables. The disciples below the stage were discussing. They were shocked and excited, as if they had not expected this. On the stage, the venerables and the four immortal monarchs were shocked when they saw the pressure exuding from Fengjiu and Xianyuan Mo's. They stood up and lost their composure as they exclaimed. Chapter 2895. Both of them were peak heavenly gods? How was that possible? Xianyuan Mo's had clearly displayed the strength of a heavenly god, but that was not the strength of a peak heavenly god. Furthermore, Fengjiu and Fengjiu were clearly only at the peak immortal emperor stage when they first saw her. How? How did she suddenly change? A thought flashed through their minds, causing them to involuntarily gasp. They had concealed their strength. The two of them had actually concealed their strength. Moreover, they had concealed their strength in front of so many of them. Even though they had repeatedly sized them up, they had not been able to see through their true strength. This terrifying concealment caused their hearts to tremble. Previously, they had thought that the two honorables would win without a doubt. Now, however, They felt a faint sense of unease, especially after Xianyuan Mose and Fengjiu had fearlessly asked them to swear an oath to the heavens. Now, it seemed like they had dug a hole for the two honorables to jump into. The two honorables were both peak heavenly gods, just like the two of them. Logically speaking, the two honorables had been in the heavenly god stage for many years. Even if they were at the same level of strength, it would be difficult for anyone to compare to them. However, now, as they looked at Xianyuan Mose and Fengjiu, who exuded confidence and sharpness from between their brows, they felt a little uncertain. The two of them did not hide their strength, and a powerful and intimidating aura burst out from their bodies. One was black, and the other was red. The aura from their bodies was so similar, and they were both so domineering and intimidating. At this moment, their feelings were complicated. Did they lose two honorables in this battle? Or did they lose two more monarch-like figures? You're both peak heavenly gods? CK and Mu Xian widened their eyes in shock. These two freaks.
How old were they?
They had actually cultivated to the peak heavenly god stage? One had to know that even after entering the heavenly god stage, some people could not reach the peak heavenly god stage even after cultivating for 50 or even 100 years. However, these two freaks were actually both peak heavenly gods.
No wonder they dared to fight with them.
It turned out that they had such strength as a trump card. However, even if they were peak heavenly gods, they were probably no match for the two of them. Fengjiu looked at them with a smile and said leisurely, "Unfortunately, I've just advanced a while ago, so I haven't been able to find someone to practice with. Today's my lucky day." Hearing this, the corners of the two honorables' mouths twitched. Was he trying to use them? This Fengjiu's words. "Let's see what you're capable," Honorable Mu Xian said. As soon as he finished speaking, his figure swept past like a gust of wind. The disciples of the four sects below the stage could only see a gust of wind carrying a pressure that could be seen with the naked eye. They did not even see Honorable Mu Xian's figure, let alone his moves. However, standing there, Fengjiu narrowed his eyes and stared ahead. Through the gust of wind, he stared at Honorable Mu Xian, who was charging towards him. Then he said to Xianyuan Mose, "Let me stretch my muscles first." Chapter 2896. Venerable Mu Xian had no intention of dodging. When he saw the two streams of flame in Fengjiu's hands coming at him like two ferocious beasts, he immediately turned his palms, and two wind blades formed into two wolf heads. They opened their mouths wide and pounced at Fengjiu, as if they wanted to swallow the flames in one gulp. "Wind wolf roll!" Venerable Mu Xian roared. His deep and majestic voice shook the hearts of the people below the stage. The four immortal masters on the stage held their breaths and looked over. Xianyuan Mose and CK did not make a move at this time. They were also watching the battle between Fengjiu and Mu Xian. They all wanted to know how strong the two sides were. Although CK had always thought that Fengjiu and Xianyuan Mose could not defeat them, he was still a little surprised and cautious after seeing their strength. But now, he saw that Mu Xian had used 70% of his strength in this attack. Even he would not be able to withstand it, let alone Fengjiu. Therefore, he felt that this attack might knock Fengjiu off the stage. If that happened, the outcome would be clear almost immediately. But who knew that in the next moment, he almost jumped up when he saw this scene. When the ferocious beasts condensed from flames collided with Mu Xian's wind wolves, the collision of the two streams of air violently produced powerful wind blades and pressure. The sound of the wind and the flames whistled like the roar of a wild dragon, making people tremble in fear. He watched as the wind wolves swallowed the flames in one gulp and pounced forward to attack Fengjiu. But in the next moment, the two wind wolves were covered by the flames in an instant and merged into one. They turned back and pounced at Mu Xian. Hiss! Impossible! Mu Xian was shocked and immediately wanted to retreat. But no matter how fast he retreated, he could not outrun the impact of the two streams of air formed by the convergence of the two forces. In almost an instant, the fire wolf pounced on him. At that moment of imminent peril, a gust of wind instantly surged out from his body to protect him, attempting to disperse and extinguish the fire wolf that was pouncing towards him. However, the gust of wind that surged out from his body could only protect his life at that moment and lessen the heavy injury from this blow.
Whoosh. Bang.
The powerful force and the flames collided directly with the gust of wind and landed on Mu Xian's body. The flames expanded along with the flames, burning his robe. The force of the impact also knocked him back more than 10 meters. Hiss.
Ah.
It's so hot. Mu Xian cried out in surprise as he hurriedly put out the fire. However, seeing that the fire could not be extinguished, he decisively took off his outer robe, and only then did he brush away the fire on his body. Even so, his eyebrows were burnt and the ends of his hair were burnt. His dignified face was covered in dirt, and he cut a sorry figure. The people on and off the stage were shocked to the point of being dumbstruck. This is impossible, right? With just one move, Venerable Mu Xian was reduced to such a sorry state? Seeing Venerable Mu Xian, who was usually incomparably dignified, standing on the stage wearing only a white inner robe, touching his eyebrows while looking at his hair and looking at his dusty appearance, they could not help but want to laugh. But when they saw his dark face, they felt that if they laughed at this time, it would be very embarrassing for him, so they all held back their laughter and tried their best to look elsewhere. Chapter 2897. It's our turn. As soon as he finished speaking, Xianyuan Mose's black robe fluttered. He condensed a sword in his hand and dashed forward like the wind. Upon hearing Xianyuan Mose's words, CK quickly calmed himself down. He had no time to care about Mu Xian's situation. When he saw Xianyuan Mose's sword coming at him, he waved his hand and slashed his palm through the air, creating several palm prints. The palm print struck out and dispersed Xianyuan Mose's sword chi. At the same time, he leaned forward and attacked with a swift and fierce palm wind. Whoosh! Whoosh! The palm wind changed and turned into a fist. The fist force contained a hidden force. Every move was swift and fierce and full of destructive power. It was aimed directly at Xianyuan Mose. Xianyuan Mose dodged and retreated. He changed from attacking to defending. His deep eyes were fixed on CK's attack, as if he was forced to retreat by CK's swift and fierce attack. Below the stage, Wanyan Qianhua looked at the people on the stage. He looked at Fengjiu's battle, then looked at Xianyuan Mose's battle. Compared to Fengjiu's side, Xianyuan Mose's side looked like they were being attacked to the point where they couldn't fight back. Not only did CK feel that Xianyuan Mose was unable to fight back, but even the four immortal masters felt that Xianyuan Mose's strength was not enough to fight against Quebec. Therefore, they gradually relaxed. However, just as CK forced Xianyuan Mose to the corner of the stage, Xianyuan Mose's aura suddenly changed. His body instantly spun forward, sucking in all the aura in the surrounding air. He suddenly struck out with his palm. Whoosh! CK was attacking step by step. When he suddenly saw Xianyuan Mose's change in attack style, he couldn't help but be shocked. He quickly retreated and condensed a wind blade in his palm. Bang! The two powerful forces formed by the wind from the two palms collided violently with a loud bang. The airflow spread to both sides, and the two figures took a few steps back at the same time. But the moment they retreated, Xianyuan Mose's figure shot out like a bolt of lightning. With a tap of his foot, he leaped high into the air, then shot down at a strange speed. The air blade formed by the airflow of spiritual energy carried a powerful pressure as it shot down towards Sir C. Quebec. Hiss. How is this possible? CK was shocked. How could he move at that speed? He was shocked. He gathered his spirit power in his hands and tried to block the attack. There was a loud bang and his feet sank into the ground. Two deep footprints appeared on the stage, and his body was shortened by more than half. Just as Sir Seek was startled, Xianyuan Mose instantly grabbed his hand. Xianyuan Mose flipped to the side, lifted him up, and flung him away. Ah! He cried out in surprise as his body was flung to a corner and slammed heavily into the stage. The blood and qi in his body suddenly surged up. As his blood and qi surged, he spat out a mouthful of blood. Pooh! Blood dyed the stage red. Everyone on and off the stage was shocked. They were all dumbfounded as they watched the scene unfold on the stage. How is this possible? That was CK. He was the strongest venerable of his generation. He'd cough. Chapter 2898. CK's eyelids twitched at the thought that if he lost to Xianyuan Mo's, he would have to acknowledge him as his master. If that really happened, it would be too embarrassing. Thinking of this, CK quickly stabilized his strength and increased his spiritual power. 2 green vines suddenly sprang out from his sleeves. The 2 green vines grew rapidly as if they had a life of their own and attacked Xianyuan Mo's. The vines that sprang out from the green vines also grew rapidly. Not long after, 2 of the vines wrapped around Xianyuan Mo's feet. When Xianyuan Mo saw this, he waved his sleeves, and a visible stream of spiritual energy sliced through the air like a blade, cutting the rattan in half. At the same time, another rattan abruptly shot out with a whoosh and slapped towards Xianyuan Mo's with a powerful wind blade. Xianyuan Mo's immediately dodged. With a move of his hand, the Xianyuan sword instantly appeared in his hand. With a sweep of his sword aura, the sword aura whizzed through the air and chopped off all the vines. When CK saw this, he leaped into the air. After the vines in his hand disappeared, a long sword with a sharp glint appeared. The long sword carried a swift and fierce aura as it swept out, bringing about streaks of sword shadows as it slashed towards Xianyuan Mo's. At the same time, he reached out with his other hand, and another long sword appeared in his palm. When he attacked with both swords, everyone who saw this scene couldn't help but cry out in surprise.
Hiss!
That's CK's double shadow swords. He usually doesn't show it to others easily, but he actually used it today. It seems like he's been forced into a corner. CK's venerable has wind and wood attributes, but his most powerful skill is the double shadow 8 forms of the double shadow swords. Back then, he used this to become the #1 venerable in the sect. I didn't expect him to use the double shadow swords to deal with Xianyuan Mo's today. It seems like he views Xianyuan Mo's as a formidable opponent. Isn't it? Xianyuan Mo's wasn't at a disadvantage when the 2 of them fought on the stage. Venerable CK probably understood this and used the dual shadow swords. However, no matter how strong Xianyuan Mo's is, he's bound to lose after Venerable CK used the dual shadow swords. On the other side, Venerable Mu Xian was sent flying by Fengjiu's fists. When he spat out a mouthful of blood, he was sent flying more than 10 meters away and almost fell off the high platform. Fortunately, he hooked the edge of the high platform with the tip of his foot and steadied himself. Aren't you a heavenly deity? Why is he still a mystic? Venerable Mu Xian widened his eyes in exasperation. He was clearly exchanging blows with her, but who knew that Fengjiu's spiritual aura would suddenly change into a mystic aura to fight him? Mystic aura was very important in fighting strength, and her speed and movement techniques were very strange. He couldn't cope with her attacks and had to take the full force of her fists. When those fists landed on his body, if he didn't have the strength of a heavenly deity protecting his body, a few of his ribs would have been broken. However, even with the strength of a heavenly deity protecting his body, this attack caused the blood in his body to surge violently, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. Fengjiu landed on the ground, her red robes fluttering in the air like a dazzling flower. She raised her eyebrows and chuckled. Who told you that a spiritual cultivator can't be a mystic cultivator? Unfortunately, I'm a mystic and spiritual dual cultivator.
Take this.
Chapter 2899. As he shouted, he ran towards Sequebec. His comical appearance left the audience dumbfounded. Look. His clothes were untidy, his face was covered in dirt, and he was running away. Where was the dignified bearing of a venerable? CK, who was fighting with Xianyuan Mo's, immediately turned around and glared at him. I can't even take care of myself. How can I take care of you? Let's join forces. Let's knock Fengjiu off the stage first, then deal with Xianyuan Mo's. Mu Xian suggested. That's a good idea. Fengjiu, who had chased after them, said with a smile. He looked at Mu Xian and said, let's kick you off the stage first, then deal with Si Quebec. CK blocked Xianyuan Mo's Xianyuan sword with his swords and quickly retreated. At the same time, he pulled Mu Xian to his side. He panted slightly as he looked at the two people standing together. His gaze swept past Xianyuan Mo's sword and landed on Fengjiu.
Fengjiu you.
Before he could finish speaking, Fengjiu interrupted him. As a disciple, I can't directly address my master by his name. Fengjiu's clear eyes turned, and the corners of his lips curled up as he looked at the two of them. Otherwise, as your master, we will have to retrain you.
You.
The two of them were so angry that smoke seemed to be coming out of their heads. In the past, who would dare to talk back to them so impudently and rudely? As long as their faces darkened, the disciples below them would all obediently lower their heads and bow respectfully. But now, Fengjiu had already infuriated them several times. The most hateful thing was that the two of them were not good at bickering. When she said that, they often couldn't say a word and could only suppress their anger. Mu Xian, who had come to CK's side, took a deep breath and calmed himself down. He stared at Fengjiu and said, don't be so smug. I haven't used all my strength to fight with you. In a while Why did you suddenly attack? His expression changed and was filled with panic and astonishment. Before he could finish speaking, Fengjiu, who had been standing about 10 meters away from him, suddenly attacked him with a sword in his hand. The sharp sword aura carried a green glow, and the flames at the tip of the sword made him swallow his saliva involuntarily. To think that he, a venerable, was actually beaten by Fengjiu to the point that he was afraid of her. If news of this spread, how would he have the face to meet others? Immediately, he also drew his weapon and went forward. The two swords clashed and sparks flew. At the same time, CK also went forward and attacked Fengjiu from both sides fiercely. He wanted to beat her off the stage first and then deal with Xianyuan Mo's. Seeing the two of them attacking Fengjiu from both sides, Xianyuan Mo's snorted coldly and his black figure flashed and joined the battle. The four of them fought on the stage. Their figures flashed and the shadows of their swords refracted. Streaks of air blades attacked from the stage. Some of them attacked the venerable sitting on the stage while others attacked the disciples below the stage. They were so frightened that they cried out in a low voice and broke out in cold sweat. Chapter 2900.
Thump. Thump.
Two loud thuds rang out, followed by two muffled groans and gasps from the crowd. Aside from that, the area was completely silent. No one said a word. They only widened their eyes in disbelief as they stared at the two venerables who had been kicked off the stage in a sorry state. They lost? They lost? They lost to two cultivators from the lower realm? Did they see wrongly? CK and Mu Xian, who had been kicked off the stage, stood up while clutching their aching chests. They stared at the two figures, one black and one red, who were walking towards them from the stage. Their old faces flushed red. They had actually lost. They had actually lost to the two of them in front of so many people. Although they found it hard to believe and somewhat unacceptable, the two of them were not ordinary people, so they quickly calmed down. They looked at the two people standing on the stage and respectfully knelt down to pay their respects. Si Quebec, Mu Xian.
Greetings, masters.
Thank you for showing mercy. Although they had lost the competition, they could not lose their spirit. Since they had lost, they had to fulfill their promise according to the oath they had made earlier. Moreover, they also knew that in the battle just now, the two of them had obviously shown mercy. If they had not shown mercy, even if they had not died, they would have been seriously injured. After this battle, they were wholeheartedly convinced of the two's strength. Naturally, they were convinced from the bottom of their hearts. Upon hearing this, Fengjiu glanced at Xianyuan Mo's with a smile. Then, the two of them said at the same time, "Stand up." When they heard the two voices, one deep and cold, the other full of laughter. The two of them could not help but smile bitterly in their hearts. After respectfully acknowledging the two, they stood up. Seeing this, the crowd on the stage finally came to their senses. Supremacy Lingmu laughed heartily. I didn't expect this. In just a short while, the two of us have become Fengjiu's disciples. Ha 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 ha, you can do whatever you want. You want to fight with us? This is the consequence. Venerable Lingmu was delighted. He hadn't expected this outcome either.
Ha ha ha.
Fortunately, I did not learn from you guys. Venerable Snow Jade covered her mouth and chuckled. She was also watching the scene before her with interest. This was great. He originally wanted to take in Xianyuan Mose and Fengjiu, but who would have thought that the two of them would take him in instead? Perhaps even the immortal monarch did not expect this, right? She turned her beautiful eyes and looked at the four immortal monarchs. She saw that each of them had a look of astonishment on their faces. Clearly, they had yet to recover from their shock. Below the stage, Wanyan Xianhua was also smiling like a flower. He was very happy. Not only did they have two powerful disciples, but they also won a lot of treasures and became famous in the Four Immortal sect. At this time, one of the immortal monarchs, who was the host, stood up and walked to Xianyuan Mo's and Fengjiu's side. He said, "It's true that the new generation excels the old. The two of you have really surprised everyone. You're too kind, immortal monarch." As Fengjiu spoke, he looked at the two people below the stage and said, "CK Mu Xian, why aren't you preparing a cave abode for us to rest?" Hearing this, the two people below the stage finally came to their senses. "Yes, masters, please follow us." As they spoke, they looked at the immortal monarch on the stage and cupped their hands. "Immortal monarch, we'll bring our two masters to rest first." Chapter 2901. Everyone on the stage looked at each other in dismay as they watched them leave on their flying swords. Was it over just like that? The two of them had taken advantage of the situation and gained two peak divine realm experts as their disciples. After all, not only were CK and Mu Xian powerful, the forces behind them weren't small either. Now, the two of them had become the disciples of that pair of young men. It truly made them feel as if they were dreaming. In a corner below the stage, Wanyan Xianhua was collecting the mountain of treasures when she heard the cries of the people around her. "I bet all the money I had on me. Who knew that I would lose it all? Oh, my crystal stones. That's a whole year's worth of expenses given to me by my family. Just like that, just like that. How could the two venerables lose? How could they lose? I thought they would definitely win." One by one, the disciples said with a sullen face. Pairs of eyes stared at the treasures that Wanyan Qianhua had collected. The glittering treasures made them dizzy. So many treasures had become the treasures of these two people, causing them to feel a burst of pain in their hearts.
Oh.
The two of them have made a lot of money. Venerable Snow Jade came to Wanyan Qianhua's side and couldn't help but chuckle when she saw the pile of treasures being collected by her. "Master, I'll take these to Xiaojiu and the others first," Wanyan Qianhua said as she bowed to her master. Then, she rode her red-crowned crane to a mountain peak. Because of this battle, the people of the four major immortal sects knew that the competition couldn't go on. Therefore, after a short discussion, the four immortal dukes allowed the people below to leave with their disciples. On the other side, CK and Mu Xian brought Xianyuan Mose and Fengjiu to a cave residence. They stopped in front of it and said, "Masters, please rest in this cave residence first. The things inside are relatively complete. As for the other small things, we'll ask our disciples to bring them up later." Xianyuan Mose glanced at the cave residence and nodded to Fengjiu. "This place is not bad. The spiritual energy is abundant, and there are no other caves nearby. It looks quiet and secluded. Well, since you're satisfied, we'll stay here for a few days before leaving," Fengjiu said with a smile as he looked at the cave residence in front of him. "Okay." Xianyuan Mose smiled and led Fengjiu inside. CK and Mu Xian followed behind them. Master, I'll send 2 disciples to serve you later. If Master has any instructions, you can also instruct the odd job disciples to do it. Okay. Xianyuan Mose nodded and led Fengjiu inside. He said to the 2 people behind him, ask them to prepare some food. Also, during the time we're staying here, no one is allowed to enter this cave residence without our permission.
Yes.
The 2 of them replied and looked at each other. Mu Xian left first and found someone to arrange the chores. CK followed behind them. He sighed softly as he watched the 2 of them walk in hand. He really didn't expect this. One day, he would have 2 people so much younger than him as his masters. Moreover, their cultivation levels were higher than his. Chapter 2902. Yes, CK will take his leave. He bowed and left. Not long after he left, Wanyan Qianhua also arrived. Xiaojiu. Sister. Fengjiu heard her voice and walked out. When he saw her, he pulled her into the cave and smiled. Sister, I didn't have a chance to catch up with you earlier. Come, let's go. Xiaojiu? When Xianyuan Mose heard these 3 words, he thought about how Wanyan Qianhua had attacked Fengjiu's chest. He was speechless. They were both women. Why did they call each other so intimately? After a while, 2 red figures walked in. He stood up and said to Wanyan Qianhua, please sit. When Wanyan Qianhua saw him, she smiled and asked Fengjiu, Xiaojiu, he's your man. You call me sister. Shouldn't he call me sister too? The corner of Xianyuan Mose's mouth twitched, and his eyelids twitched. He said to the 2 of them, you 2 talk. I'm going to rest first. Fengjiu smiled and replied. She pulled Wanyan Qianhua to sit down. Sister, don't tease him. Look at him. Is he the kind of person who would call someone sister? Oh, right, sister. How did you get here? I was wondering why I didn't hear any news about you over there. My Wanyan family has people over here, so I came over. She said casually, I've been under my master's tutelage for some time. However, I'm not as good as you guys. The moment I came over, I made it known to the 4 major immortal sects and got 2 divine realm disciples for no reason. When she spoke up to this point, her charming eyes curved slightly as she smiled and said, Little Jiu, all of you really picked up a treasure. Seek and Mushin are the strongest amongst all the Exalt realm experts here. Moreover, the forces and clans behind them aren't small at all. All of you have just arrived here, yet you already have 2 such disciples. Hearing that, Fengjiu laughed and said, We also bet on ourselves to win these 2 disciples. It was risky. Fortunately, we won. If we lost, we would have to worship them as our masters. I didn't expect your strength to improve so quickly. You're already at the peak of the divine realm. It's incredible. Wanyan Qianhua looked at her and sighed. She knew that when she first met her, she was not so strong. How long had it been since then? Her strength had increased to the peak of the divine realm. Sister, Mose and I have just arrived here, and we're not familiar with this place. Tell me about the situation here. We plan to stay here for 2 days before leaving. We're going to settle down outside. She said. I see. Wait a moment. As she spoke, she rummaged through her space ring and finally took out a thick book and handed it to her. I don't think I can explain it clearly. Take it and read it yourself. This is the distribution of this world, and it also records the various major powers. There's also a map of this world. She took it and smiled. So, there's a book. That's so convenient. This way, she would have everything she wanted to find. There's more, Wanyan Qianhua said with a smile. She stood up and found a wider space. With a wave of her sleeve, a large pile of treasures appeared in the open space. Look, you've earned so much treasure in just a short while. Chapter 2903. It's really quite a lot. These people are really generous. She laughed and looked towards Wanyan Qianhua, saying, Sister, you can take some of these treasures. As soon as she finished speaking, she received a light knock on her head. Wanyan Xianhua rolled her eyes at her. If your sister wants these things, there will naturally be people who will deliver them to her door. You should keep these things for yourself. Then wouldn't you have helped me for nothing? Fengjiu felt a little apologetic. Why do we sisters have to say such things? All right, you should rest for today. I'll come over tomorrow to show you around. She patted Fengjiu's head and said, rest well. All right, I'll send sister out. As she spoke, she sent her out before turning back. When she returned, she saw that Xianyuan Mose was already standing in front of the treasures and looking at them. She smiled and walked up to him, hugging his arm. How is it? Was the money easy to come by? Hearing this, Xianyuan Mose laughed softly. When have you ever been sad about making money? A single pill of hers was already worth an astronomical amount. These things were easily obtainable to her, so they weren't rare items. That's right, my sister gave me a book just now.
Take it and read it first.
She handed the book to him. After Xianyuan Mose received it, he asked, when will they wake up in your space?
Don't worry about that.
Without me pricking their acupoints with silver needles, they won't wake up. However, I'll have to bring Hauer out later to feed him something to prevent him from starving. Grandmaster. Two voices came from outside. Hearing the voices outside, the two people in the cave looked at each other. Xianyuan Mose sat down at the table, while Fengjiu walked out. When he came outside, he saw a male and female disciple dressed in green standing outside with things in their hands. Fengjiu glanced at them. The two of them were about 13 or 14 years old. The male disciple had a clever face while the female disciple had a beautiful face with baby fat. They looked very lovable and cute. Grandmaster. When the two saw Fengjiu come out, they hurriedly bowed respectfully and called out, Shizhuan asked us to bring some food to Grandmaster. Come in, she said as she turned around and walked inside. After the two little disciples entered, they saw a black-robed man sitting inside. They immediately bowed again. Disciple greets Grandmaster. Xianyuan Mose responded and glanced at them indifferently. After Fengjiu sat down, he saw the two of them standing to the side after placing the things on the table. He asked, what are your names? In reply to Grandmaster, Disciple Wu Yuan is CK's youngest disciple. Shizhuan originally wanted to send a service disciple to serve you, but in the end, she chose a disciple from her own group to serve you. If Grandmaster needs anything, you can ask Wu Yuan to do it. The young man said quickly. Hearing this, the young girl beside him hurriedly said, Grandmaster, disciple is Mu Xian's youngest disciple. Kaling Shizhuan instructed me to take good care of the two grandmasters. If the two grandmasters need anything, you can ask this disciple to do it. Hearing this, Fengjiu nodded. You can go outside and wait. If we don't ask you to come in, you don't have to come in.
Yes.
The two of them replied. Then, they bowed and left the room. Chapter 2904. Let me try it. Fengjiu took a bite and nodded. Yes, it should be cooked by the old fire. I don't think it was cooked in the time it took us to get here, and order them to prepare the food. I think it should be food prepared for some of the venerables in the sect. She smiled and looked at the food on the table. I didn't expect the venerables in the sect to eat so well. Do you think we should stay here for 2 more days? If you want to stay here for 2 more days, then stay for 2 more days before leaving, Xianyuan Mo said. Fengjiu smiled. After eating a bowl of bird's nest porridge and a bowl of stewed soup, she carried Hao who was sleeping in the space. At the same time, Xianyuan Mo waved her hand and set up a soundproof barrier so that the sound inside could not travel outside. After Fengjiu undid Hao's sleeping acupoint, she played with him for a while before scooping a bowl of bird's nest porridge and feeding him. Looking at her fair and chubby son, Fengjiu could not help but smile. Will this kid become a little fatty in the future? He won't. When he's a little older, we can teach him how to cultivate, Xianyuan Mo said as he watched Fengjiu feed the child porridge. After eating, she held Hao's hand and learned to walk on the ground. Xianyuan Mo saw this and asked, Jiu, aren't you going to rest for a while? I'm not very tired. Even if I want to rest, I can't sleep. Why don't I play with Hao? Fengjiu said with a smile. She held Hao Er's hand and walked while saying, "Come, come, take a step and see." "Yes, that's it." Again. Seeing this, Xianyuan Mo's also accompanied by the side. When she caught a glimpse of the small mountain of treasures from the corner of her eye, she said, "Put those things away first." "Oh, I almost forgot," Fengjiu said. She held the child's hand with one hand and waved her sleeve with the other to put all the treasures into the space. In the cave residence, Fengjiu held Hao Er's hand and learned to walk. Xianyuan Mo sat at the table and flipped through the book to understand the distribution of power on this continent. On the other side in the sect's meeting hall, all the venerables and important figures of the sect were present. Even CK and Mu Xian were sitting in the middling Mu Venerable Snowy Jade and Venerable Snowy Jade sit. "Immortal Monarch, why did you summon all of us to this meeting hall? Aren't you asking a question you already know the answer to?" Immortal Lord Lingmu sneered and glanced at her. Venerable Snow Jade glared at him and said, "You talk too much. All right, quiet down." The Venerable Immortal on the main seat raised his hand and glanced at the crowd. Finally, his gaze fell on CK and Mu Xian. He said, "Today, I called all of you here to discuss Xianyuan Mo's and Fengjiu. Venerable Immortal, hasn't this matter been settled? Is there still a need to discuss it?" Venerable Snowy Jade said, and looked at the Venerable Immortal on the main seat. "That's right. CK and Mu Xian have both become their disciples. Is there still a need to discuss this matter?" It was rare for Venerable Lingmu and Venerable Snowy Jade to agree. Chapter 2905. Venerable CK and Venerable Mu Xian, you two have to persuade your two masters to stay in the sect if possible. You should know that even being a consecrated elder is helpful to our sect. Moreover, the two of them have such strength and such a relationship with our immortal sect. For them, this is an extremely good thing. You must think of a way to make them stay. A sliver of hesitation appeared on Si Chu and Mu Xian's faces when they heard that. They glanced at each other before looking at Immortal Monarch and saying, "Immortal Monarch, I'm afraid this isn't appropriate. The two masters aren't people who are willing to stay here for long. I heard that they'll be leaving in 2 days. Now that we've become their disciples, I'm afraid we can't stop them. As a result, I'm afraid we can't do anything about your orders." Hearing this, the Immortal Master frowned. "Try your best. If they really don't want to stay, then forget it. But if they are willing to stay, even if it's just a name, our sect will give them a lot of benefits. You can analyze the pros and cons with them and let them decide for themselves." "Yes." The two venerables responded and listened to him talk about other things and the competition of the 4 major immortal sects. The two listened absent-mindedly. They felt a little helpless. They had lost to Xianyuan Mo's and Fengjiu. Now, from their point of view, one was their master and the other was their sect. They were in a dilemma and had no choice. At this time, they were not in the mood to pay attention to other things. At this time, they were thinking that it would be best if the two masters stayed in the cave residence and left the sect in a few days. Perhaps once they left, the Immortal Master would not have any ideas about them, and they would not be in a difficult position. The next day, Wanyan Qianhua came to Fengjiu's cave residence early in the morning. Before she got close, she shouted, "Xiao Jiu, are you up? Today, I'm going to take you around the sect. There are many pleasant sceneries here. Today, I'll take you to see them." When the two disciples guarding the door saw her, they hurriedly bowed. "Greetings, Marshal Aunt Wanyan." Wanyan Qianhua glanced at them. "Oh, did he send the two of you to serve them?" "Yes, Master ordered us to serve the 2 grandmasters," the two answered respectfully. "Well, serve them well. It's your fortune to be able to serve them," Wanyan Qianhua said with a smile. "Yes," the two answered. When they were about to report to the cave residence, they saw a red figure come out. "Grandmaster." The two hurriedly bowed. Feng Jiu came out of the cave residence. Today, she was still dressed in red and dressed as a man. She looked radiant. As soon as she saw Wanyan Qianhua, she smiled and said, "Sister, you came quite early. Wanyan Xianhua glanced at her and asked with a smile. Why are you alone? Where's Xianyuan Mose? Isn't he coming with us? Fengjiu smiled and said, he said he's not going. He wants to read the book you gave him to familiarize himself with it. Chapter 2906. When she heard this, Fengjiu chuckled. Sure. Please lead the way, big sister. Let's take a look around. The two red figures were equally magnificent. When they walked together, they were pleasing to the eye. The disciples in the sect who saw the two of them stopped in their tracks and gasped in amazement. How beautiful! Uncle Master Wanyan's beauty is widely acknowledged by the four major immortal sects, but this Fengjiu, who just popped out of nowhere and called Uncle Master Wanyan Big Sister, is also breathtakingly beautiful. If he were a woman, how magnificent would he be? In the sect, only the supremacies could tell that Fengjiu was a woman. The disciples all thought that Fengjiu was a man, and a homosexual at that. When they arrived at the main peak, everyone who saw Fengjiu greeted her respectfully, Grandmaster. Especially when she saw that the disciples were all older than her, but after seeing her, they stopped and respectfully bowed. Then, she looked at Wanyan Xianhua at the side and chuckled. Big sister, you didn't come here just to see these disciples call me Grandmaster, did you? Ha ha ha, you're right. Look at them, they're all famous people. Now that Supremacy CK has acknowledged you as his master, they've become your grand disciples. Wanyan Xianhua covered his mouth and smiled charmingly. Little Jiu, let me tell you something. Supremacy CK has a herb farm here. There are many good things in it. Fengjiu's eyes lit up at the mention of a herb farm. Really? Of course. Supremacy CK has the wood attribute, so he takes care of the herb farm when he's free. The spiritual herbs are all growing very well. As Wanyan Xianhua spoke, he led her to the other side. But he treasures it very much. He's always been very protective of it. Hearing this, Fengjiu smiled and narrowed his eyes. Then I'd like to see what kind of medicinal field it is. Speaking of which, we've already acknowledged them as our masters, but they haven't given us anything to show their filial piety. They haven't brought you anything? That's too bad. Wanyan Xianhua smiled charmingly and said, the two of them have a lot of treasures. When you go back, you must extort them well. Let's take a look at the herb farm first. If there's anything good, I'll just take it from there. As Fengjiu spoke, he followed her to a place. However, before they got close, two disciples stopped him. Uncle Master Wanyan Xianhua's herb farm if we enter. Hearing this, Wanyan Xianhua glanced at them flirtatiously. He smiled and asked, Idol? Don't you know that your master has given you a grandmaster? We know. But what does that have to do with anything? The two disciples had been guarding the herb farm. They hadn't gone to watch the battle that their master had lost. They had only heard that their master had been defeated, so he had acknowledged the two winners as his masters. They seemed to be called Xianyuan Mose and Fengjiu, two people from the lower realm. Because the one who's going in is your grandmaster. Even your master doesn't dare to stop him. Are you too tired of living? Do you dare to stop your grandmaster? Ah, grandmaster? The two disciples couldn't help but look at the young man in red. They were instantly dumbfounded. They had heard that one of them was a handsome young man in red. Could that be the young man in front of them? Chapter 2907. Aren't you going to greet your grandmaster? Wanyan Xianhua's beautiful eyes swept over them. The two disciples' hearts trembled, and they hurriedly bowed. B disciple greets grandmaster. Get up, Fengjiu said and motioned. Open the front courtyard door. I want to go in and take a look. Yes, yes. The two didn't dare to stop her, and could only go forward to open the door. After the two entered, one of them followed in, and the other quickly ran to find their grandmaster. Fengjiu entered and smelled a strong medicinal fragrance. She looked forward and saw that there was a small bamboo house on the side of the medicinal field. Walking further in, she saw a large medicinal field in front of her. Go take a look. I'll sit for a while. Wanyan Xianhua wasn't very interested in these spiritual herbs, so she went to sit on a wooden stump outside the bamboo house. With one hand on her cheek, she looked at the figure walking around in the medicinal field. The spiritual herbs aren't bad, but the age is a bit short. Fengjiu looked and said as she walked around the medicinal field in front of her. When she came to a medicinal field with a different color of soil, she stopped and looked. It's actually the deep well red earth soil that has been baked. She was a bit surprised and carefully looked at the spiritual herbs planted on the red earth soil. With this look, her eyes couldn't help but light up. Good stuff. There's even 1,000-year 7-leaf fire spirit flower, TSK. Not simple, not simple. The disciple beside her was secretly surprised when he heard this. Did this grandmaster know about spiritual herbs? He could actually tell that the soil was baked deep well red earth soil. He only knew about this soil from his grandmaster, otherwise, he wouldn't know what was so special about this red soil. According to his master, this red mud could make fire attribute spirit herbs grow faster and more luxuriant. It could also double the growth of fire attribute spirit herbs. Therefore, all the spirit herbs planted on this red mud field were fire attribute spirit herbs. Just as he was thinking, he saw the Grandmaster take out a shovel from somewhere and dig out the 1,000-year 7-leaf fire spirit flower. He was so scared that his eyes almost fell out. Grandmaster, no, you can't. He cried out in surprise and hurriedly stepped forward. This is Master's treasure. Master treasures it very much. He doesn't even allow others to touch it. It's precisely because I know it's a treasure that I want it. If it's not a treasure, it's useless to me. Fengjiu said. She continued to carefully dig with her shovel. She wanted to move this spirit herb to her space and plant it there. Later on, she would find time to refine it into a pill. If she took this pill, the fire attribute in her body would definitely skyrocket. Martial ancestor, this is Master's lifeblood, the disciple said with a long face. Upon hearing this, Fengjiu turned around and scolded. Nonsense. Your Shizun's family jewels are in his crotch. Puchi. On the other side, Wanyan Xianhua heard this and couldn't help but burst out laughing. The more she laughed, the louder she laughed. She laughed so hard that she looked extremely charming. When she finally stopped laughing, she pressed one hand against her chest and used the other to wipe away the tears from the corners of her eyes. She smiled and said, Xiaojiu, how can you be so bad? If Supremacy CK heard this, how would he dare to appear in front of you in the future? Fengjiu smiled and said, How am I bad? I'm clearly just telling the truth. It's this little disciple who's being naughty. He actually said that this spirit herb is his master's lifeblood. Isn't this nonsense? Chapter 2908. The naive disciple still didn't know that he had been tricked and was still trying to emphasize it. At this time, Fengjiu had already dug up the spiritual medicine and sent it into the space. She then looked at the other two spiritual medicines. These two are also not bad. Grandmaster. The disciple's face was already red with anxiety, like an ant on a hot pan, and didn't know what to do. Don't worry, I'll leave after digging up 2 more. Fengjiu didn't even raise her head as she spoke. She dug up another 2 spiritual medicines that were older, then patted her hands in satisfaction, brushed off the dirt on her robes, and stood up. Okay, I won't dig anymore, lest you cry later. Fengjiu said with a smile and patted the disciple's shoulder. Grandmaster, the 3 oldest spiritual medicines were all dug up by you. If Shizun comes, how will I explain it to him? The disciple asked with red eyes and a face full of worry. Just tell him the truth. Don't worry, your Shizun won't vent his anger on you. She said with a smile and walked towards Wanyan Xianhua. Sister, let's go look at other places. Okay, let's go look at other places. Wanyan Xianhua pursed her lips and said with a smile. She left the medicine field with her and went to another place. There are still many treasures in Honored CK's palace. Do you want to go take a look? Wanyan Xianhua asked. No treasure can compare to these spiritual medicines. Fengjiu chuckled and said, Let's go to Mu Xion's mountain peak to take a look. Does he have anything good there? Honored Mu Xion. He doesn't have a medicine field, but he has 2 purple gold spirit deer. They're really beautiful. I'll take you to see them. Those 2 deer are very intelligent, and he treasures them very much. Feng Jiu is stunned. Purple gold spirit deer? That can't be right. That's an extremely rare giant spirit deer. It's said that it's a spirit beast that eats gold and jade. It's very precious. I've never seen a purple gold spirit deer in many forests. That is indeed the case. It is precisely because they are extremely rare that Reverend Mu Xion treasures them so much. You don't know, but he spent a lot of effort for those 2 purple gold spirit deer. It is said that these 2 purple gold spirit deer have grown up with a lot of effort. Moreover, these 2 purple gold spirit deer only eat things like gold and jade. Hearing this, Feng Jiu's eyes flashed with excitement. Then I really want to see it. I've only seen this thing in the book of 10,000 beasts. I've never seen a living thing. Wanyan Qianhua pursed his lips and chuckled. However, even if you are interested, I don't think he is willing to give you these 2 purple gold spirit deer. Haha, Seat, she smiled slyly. If it really was the purple gold spirit deer, she had to find a way to get it. Plus, she had a lot of treasures, so she didn't believe that he wouldn't trade. The 2 arrived at Mu Xion's main peak. After entering the main peak, the disciples all respectfully greeted their ancestor. The 2 directly walked inside, and under Wanyan Qianhua's guidance, they arrived at the place where the 2 purple gold spirit deer were being raised. Look, this is it. Honored Mu Xion set up a barrier here to prevent the 2 purple gold spirit deer from escaping. Wanyan Qianhua gestured for her to look forward. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.